The God Eater franchise has been a series that has taken me for an epic thrill ride dating back since 2011, with its scary looking monsters and fast combat mechanics, to the story that knits this all together, and ever since then, have been a huge fan of the games. On December 21st, 2015, when Bandai Namco released the news that the long-awaited sequel game, God Eater 2 Rage Burst, was coming overseas, and on top of that, the remastered version of the first game? I was ecstatic. I was honestly freaking ecstatic. It still baffles my mind that we will have the chance to play both of these games in English relatively soon this summer. But what is God Eater, you may ask yourself? Well, judging from the footage, you would compare it to something like Monster Hunter, right? Well, you're not wrong there. As in both games, you do fight monsters in open 3D areas and harvest their minerals when defeated. However, God Eater is different, as the games actually have an overarching plot to connect mission events together. And the combat system, while similar, is different. To get ready for the release of Resurrection and Rage Burst, I thought it would be a good idea to see where these games originally stem from, and possibly enlighten some of you guys who have never heard of this fun monster hunting series. Keep in mind, most of these games are in Japanese, and this video only serves as a general overlook of the series to help you get more familiar with the franchise. Going back 6 years ago, we take a look at God Eater. God Eater was originally released on the PlayStation Portable in 2010 exclusively in Japan, and developers working on the title went under the name Project GE. However, the developer, Shift, was the name of the company who produced the original God Eater game and continues to work on the series today. The game's setting takes place in a distant apocalyptic future, and you the player take the role of a new type, God Eater, which you play as your own customizable avatar. New types carry great potential in fighting off the human threat of extinction known as the Aragami. Mankind's last line of defense against these creatures is an organization known as Fenrir. In this world, it's eat or be eaten, as the God Eaters take on dangerous tasks to relieve the world of the Aragami threat. And that basically sums up the basic plots of all the God Eater games without being too specific. If you like a good story and enjoy hack and slash games, this game might just be up your alley. God Eater staples in this series are transforming your God Arc weapon into a devouring Aragami claw to eat the cells and minerals of the Aragami you fought, changing from blade mode to gun mode with relative ease, the ability to upgrade your own weapon gear and even clothing, and having the option to customize your bullets to have a potential crazy impact in battle. God Eater Burst, released in 2011 internationally, was the first and was the only God Eater game given an English release. You can think of Burst as an expansion to the original Japanese release, given an extended story arc from where the original game left off, introducing more support partners, adding a burst bar telling you when your gauge runs out, and the ability to download and play additional content downloaded via the PlayStation Store. This added brand new Aragami monsters and weapons to craft. Japan got more DLC for their Burst version, but hey, at least the international release was supported for a little bit after our release. While the international release of God Eater was being released, Japan noticed the hype and interest for Bandai Namco's new action RPG game, so, on that same year, released a teaser trailer for the God Eater sequel, God Eater 2. Initially planned for a 2012 release, God Eater 2 would be the first game to be released on the PlayStation Vita, while a PSP version was still being co-developed. The plot of God Eater 2 takes place a few years after the events of Burst, and the player is introduced to a new branch unit of Fenrir, the Blood Unit. In this story, you will be introduced to a number of new characters with some recognizable faces as well. In terms of what makes a sequel game great, God Eater 2 hits the nail right on the head, adding nothing but more on top of the original formula and improving certain mechanics. For one, level selection of the game is nearly double than that from Burst, including several exclusive to the new region and recurring levels from the previous game. God Eater 2 adds two new weapon selections to the game, which are the Spear Weapon and the Hammer Weapon. The new game mechanic that God Eater 2 introduces is the power to awaken your God Art to use your blood to enhance your fighting abilities called Blood Arts. Every weapon type has a number of unique powers to be used in various ways of usage. I'd say, go ahead and level them all up and see what works best for you. The new Aragami are introduced, while some being really cool looking, and others just being recolors of existing ones with a few different abilities. There are more in-depth features that I'm purposely not mentioning, such as the link support device system, But seeing as the game is in Japanese, I cannot fully describe to you how this mechanic works. Fast forward 2 years later, and for the first time in the series, God Eater would be getting a console release on the PlayStation 4 with God Eater 2 Rage Burst. Let me tell you guys something. This game is the pinnacle of what has made all God Eater games so great. Not only is every single feature for previous entries included in this PlayStation 4/Vita game, but the formula gets expanded even further, adding more levels, survival missions, the ability to play online with an expanded storyline, new partners and characters, and numbers. Let me explain. Before Rage Burst, there was no indication of how effective your attacks were doing to your opponents. Sure, there was the green and orange graphical effect showing weak and critical hits, but now you can visually see the damage you're putting on the origami, and it just makes it all the more satisfying knowing how much damage you're putting on them. Rage Burst also adds one more weapon class to the list, the Scythe weapon. And seeing as the game is coming to PC, I wouldn't mind if a certain mod was made to complement this new weapon type. Through progression in the game, you are given a new ability to fight off origami known as Blood Rage. Once activated, you are invincible for a short period of time and given enhanced strength with more mobility. This ability, on top of having the blood arts, makes me feel that God Eater 2 Rage Burst is easier than God Eater Resurrection. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just adds more options. The year is 2015 and 5 years have passed since the original release of the original God Eater on PSP. Many crossovers with different franchises have happened over this course of time, and Project GE announces its plans for the 5th anniversary of the God Eater franchise. Early 2015, it was announced the series would get an anime adaptation following the eyes of a new original God Eater named Linka. The anime story is placed within the Burst timeline, but has its own story going on instead of following the games. I mention the anime because in Resurrection you can actually customize your avatar to look and sound like Linka, if you so choose to play as him. God Eater Resurrection, now the latest in the God Eater series, brings players back to the Far East branch in glorious 1080p on the PlayStation 4. This is the best way for a newcomer to get into the series, as it includes most of the gameplay mechanics and features the series has introduced. I say most because the blood art mechanic from God Eater 2 is missing from this game. It's understandable, as that mechanic makes sense to have in that game because of the story elements. In Resurrection, however, to compensate for the blood arts lost, we are introduced to an enhanced devouring mechanic. Throughout your playtime in Resurrection, you will be given the option to customize how you want your origami claw to function, some having more advantages than others. Not only does this enhance your devouring on land, but you are now given for the first time to devour in mid-air as well. And can we just take a minute to appreciate the soundtrack of these games? The series has great atmosphere when it comes to music, making it feel epic and enjoyable at times when fighting off the origami. Know this, however, because this is the remastered extended version of the first game on PSP, you won't be going back to those areas in God Eater 2 because of the different region. Yeah, you could travel back and forth in those regions in God Eater 2, but that's because your base of operations are on wheels. The only other thing Resurrection seems to offer in terms of new content is that now certain origami have enhanced and rage forms, making them harder to fight, adding an extra layer of enjoyment or frustration. And with that basically sums up the games in general. I'm so happy in the end Bandai Namco decided to tread international waters with these games. The American and European fans have been blueballed for the past 5 years now, and we can now continue to fight off origami and understanding the story of the game in our own native language. If you stuck by the end of this video and are interested in learning more about the game and how it plays, currently, a free Japanese demo is available for those who have a Japanese PlayStation 4 account. This is the method I use to record footage for this overview. I want to thank you all for watching. This video is solely inspired from my love of the series, and I don't do these kinds of videos too often. I wanted to get this video out there to help introduce people to an epic new world that awaits them this summer on PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and PC. I hope I have inspired some of you to give this franchise a shot, and I hope that this franchise does well overseas. Times have changed since 2012, and maybe if these games do well over here, maybe that can prompt other companies to localize their games to various platforms and regions as well. If you guys want to follow me on social media, links are in the description below if you so wish to. In regards if I will ever do a proper review for the game when it comes out, well, that's currently up in the air. With all that said, my name is Anime72, you've been watching a basic overview of the God Eater series, and I hope to see you on the battlefield defying all gods this summer.